So this is day 47 with Dorado, and he's gotten really good about doing some things at liberty. And of course, he really loves his stall, so that's kind of like the beginning stages. So even though I didn't have it on film, I've been working on doing some liberty work. And so the day prior, he was actually really good. And so I decided to do a little bit more liberty work. And also I had twisted my ankle over the weekend, so I kind of wanted to do stuff where I really wasn't having to move around too much. So kind of how I like to start him, I desensitize him to the sticks where I can isolate certain parts of his body to move. So his shoulders and then his rib cage, where I tap, tap, tap. Then I get it to move, and then I move to the haunches. Now I've been working on this pretty daily. It's kind of part of the routine of how I start things with him if I'm working with the whips or the sticks. And then nice tapping on his barrel. He did that really well. And he kind of moved his haunches right there just because my body was there and I kind of wanted it to go against the stick. That was pretty good. Now I'm going to work on getting them to move towards me again, working on the tapping on the opposite hip. That was a nice suggestion. And I'll give him some time to think about it. I'd also been working on having cue words, so either his name or I will say here, and so they helps get him to come to me. And you saw I opened the whips completely wide, and that's kind of the visual cue for them to come to me. So again, I'm working on getting that hip to move. That was good. That was one step. Then I ask him to come to. And again, I've been working on this for quite a while. And so now I'm going to get him to walk in the direction around me where I use two sticks kind of horizontal towards his body. He also thinks it's a really fun game to knock the barrel over. But you see his energy is pretty good. His head's pretty level. Right there, he pushed his hip a little to me. So again, in knowing Dorado, in the very beginning, he was a pretty dominant kind of guy. So it's always been something that's in the back of my mind. We had some in the beginning where he would charge me. So sometimes I have to be pretty careful for indicators of that behavior. But he's doing pretty good with this. And again, this is just building on what I had done the day before. So he knows all of this. And I'm just getting him to move around the barrel and the cone. Again, he wants to knock it over. It's pretty funny. That'll be a behavior that I can shape later on. And so now I ask him to come to me, and I tap the ground, and I noticed that right there, he kind of did a bluff, and that is something I was like, what's that? And then he turned his haunches, and that's where I'm not going to move my ground. I spanked him with the whip. That is not a behavior you want to step away from. So now you see he's kind of postured up. He's bowing up his neck a little bit. And I wonder if sometimes he thinks, obviously he thinks it's threatening when I tap the ground with the stick. So that's something I'm going to have to work on. So that upped his energy. And so it's very interesting how sensitive you can get to that energy. And you know, when he goes to that high head up in the air, and where it's hard to explain, but it's very tense, and that can reflect on me, and so I have to work on myself and staying really calm. And I'm just gonna work through here on. I'm just trying to teach him a little bit that this is not something to be upset about. So I want the tapping on the ground to not be a negative thing for him, which clearly it is. So, which I just find interesting. It just happened. It was kind of interesting to see that happen. And so it's just something I have to kind of figure out and how to work through, and trying to get his levels back down again. So I'm going to go back to what he knows. So we're going to go and try to walk and change directions. And if he doesn't go around the barrel, I'm not really minding at this moment. I'm just wanting him to just move his feet. So I'm trying to make sure I'm directing his feet. He wants to keep spinning and turning that circle. So I just added a little bit more pressure. So, you know, while I want the levels to go down, I still need to make sure that I can kind of keep a little bit more control of the feet. So he just keeps wanting to turn that circle. And again, I'm going to go back to kind of tapping the ground a little bit. Give him a little rub. Now he's gotten super sensitive to the stick touching him. So in the beginning, you saw I could tap him all over, and there was no issue. So again, when he gets a little, in knowing Dorado and kind of the moves that he was doing there, how he's bowed up like that, you sometimes have to make sure you stand your ground and not back down. And then get him back to where he can listen and trust I'm not doing anything to hurt him. But sometimes I feel like I'm definitely in a power play position with him, and he's certainly teaching me a lot. So now I've got him starting to come down a little bit more. I'm going to go back to run. Now I can tap the shoulder. So now I'm going to go back to, again, where I kind of started. Tap the rib cage. Tap the haunches. Move to the other side. So sometimes you got to go back to where you started. Working on getting his mind in a little bit lower energy.
Better
Now he's got one ear. It's okay if he picks up the trot. And it's just really interesting how we kind of had that little blip that happened today. As yesterday, he was literally foot perfect for this work. But that happens in working with horses. That's how they teach you to be better. And like I said, he has been a very interesting horse for me to work with. He's been very different than any of my other Mustangs. So sometimes I make mistakes and learn from them, and so they teach us kind of what we need to work on. So clearly I have to work on getting him to understand that tapping the ground is not a scary thing. And now he's starting to get a little bit better, where he's starting to think about the scenario instead of reacting to it and trying to just make it stop or run away from it. Tried to find a good spot to stop, give him a good rub, and working for tomorrow.